أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم سبحانك لا فهم لنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي وأفوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد اللهم صل صلاة كاملة وسلم سلاما تاما على سيدنا محمد الذي تنحل به العقد وتنفرج به الكرب وتقضى به الحوائج وتنال به الرغائب وحسن الخواتم ويستسقى الغمام بوجهه الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه في كل لمحة ونفس بعدد كل معلوم لك اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا وقلبا خاشعا ولسانا ذاكرا وشاكرا وتوبة نصوحا رب يسر ولا تعسر رب تمم بالخير رب زدني علما وفهما والحقنا بالصالحين والحمد لله رب العالمين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Respected brothers and very respected sisters, Jazakumullah khairul jaza. Both our audience in this hall, as well as everybody who's watching us over the internet, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put blessing and barakah into our learning. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to understand what we learn, the true meaning of it, and apply it inshallah in our daily lives with ikhlas and sincerity. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of the muqarrabun. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of the mukhlasun inshallah ta'ala. We are going through the 54 faraid as enumerated by the great Imam Hassan al-Basri rahimahullah. And we are going through fard number 7. That is to consume only halal foods and drinks. It is fard upon every Muslim to make sure what he eats or drinks and what he earns obtains those items that he is going to consume and let his children consume must be 100% halal, 100% of the tayyibat, pure inshallah. So we went through and explained, and we went through what kind of foods we can eat, what we cannot eat. Then eventually our discussion came to the slaughtering, halal slaughter. Correct? Last week we stopped at the slaughtering process. How to... there are two types of slaughtering. One is called ikhtiyari zakat, which is when you have full option of slaughtering yourself, or in other words, you have the means and time and ability to slaughter the animal properly as it's dictated by the Sharia, or as opposed to ittirari, the zakat, which is when there is no hope of you ever slaughtering the animal in the proper manner. In any way, you try to bleed the animal until it becomes halal. Otherwise, for example, if a cow drops into a well, and it's no way that you can reach down and get the cow out. Otherwise, if the cow dies in the well, it's going to die. So Sharia gives permission for you to poke anywhere of the animal that you can, so enough blood comes out and the animal dies, and this becomes halal, and this is called ittirari. In other words, you are under compulsion. You are compelled to do this. Otherwise, all forms of other the zakat, slaughtering, falls under ikhtiyari, zakat. We began to look at some of those questions. As you can see, who could slaughter according to Islam? Men, women, children, majnoon, mad people. We looked at all those options, inshallah, alhamdulillah. And question of Ahl Kitab. We live in a non-Muslim country, and even so, in certain Muslim countries, they import meat from outside, which is most of the time Ahlul Kitab. For example, Dubai or Emirat, they get all their meat from Australia and New Zealand, or sometimes Brazil, some other country, or Malaysia for that matter. They also do some importing of meat from overseas. Is this allowed in Islam? Is this permissible in Islam? Because this is the question of Ahlul Kitab. Ahlul Kitab. So I want to look at this, inshallah ta'ala, this question in a more detailed manner to the best of my ability. My reference is actually a research done years back, 1987 or so, by a group of scholars that I know personally who have spent years on this issue, did a thorough, these are traditional Islamic scholars, not modern scholars, traditional Islamic scholars who follow usul al-fiqh in this regard, and they give you evidences in the clearest possible manner, and they have published a paper, and this paper was published in this book format, in my hand here. If you understand Turkish, I can give you the Turkish. Especially this particular interview is done with one of the living mashayikh of our time, Muhammad Amin Ar. Sallam Allah fi dunya wal akhirah. Inshallah, he is still alive, about 95-ish. Still of the old Ottoman the ulama. And is very reliable. He is an aimma. He is part of the aimma of our times, which are relied upon and always asked for fatwa because he knows the issue. And the muttaqi person, mashallah, Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, he's a Shafi'i himself, but he knows all the other madhahib 100%, and he's very good at what he's doing, and respected by the ulama. Respected by the ulama of the Middle East in that area. Muhammad Amin Ar, inshallah. The work that I'm going to tell you and the answers that I give is mainly based on his work. Inshallah, for those who wish to read further, I can inshallah point it out to the book later on. So the question is, who is Ahl Kitab? And could the Jews and Christians of today be considered as Ahl Kitab? Second question. Can we eat the meat slaughtered by Ahl Kitab? Three questions mainly, and everything else goes around this argument. Inshallah, let's look at who is Ahl Kitab. According to Islam, the people who are given scriptures before Islam, namely the Christians and the Jews. There is no other. There is no other. Zabur, Tawrat, and Injil is given to the people before us. And the only other book, remaining book, is Al-Quran Al-Kareem. And therefore this Quran Al-Kareem is our book. And the book, the people who received message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, revelations before Islam from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, called Ahlul Kitab. They know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they know the Anbiya, and yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of their wrongdoings, became angry with them, and they deviated from the path. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they slaughtered, they killed their Anbiya, they disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they lost the favor in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But regardless, because of their past, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them a special status called what they call Ahlul Kitab. Although they are mushrikeen, although they are kafirin, they are rejectors, they are kafir and mushrik, not a problem. But still Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Islam gives them this title called Ahlul Kitab. If you read Surah Al-Baqarah, it's all about Ahlul Kitab. Surah Al-Imran, all Ahlul Kitab. Constantly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala argues with the Yahud and the Nasara, Jews and the Christians in this regard. They're called Ya Ahl al-Kitab. Lima takfuruna bi ayatillah. O people of the Kitab, people of the book, Christians and the Jews. Why do you deny the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Okay? You need to understand one thing. Although this is nothing to do with the halal meat issue, there is also a trend amongst the Muslims today, in Australia in particular, about the interfaith dialogue. As Muslims, we're not against interfaith dialogue, talking to our Christian friend or Muslim, Jewish friends, no problem. In this country, anybody can talk anything they want. But the moment when you argue with the arguments, we are from the same source, monotheistic religion, we are the same, then this is where you're wrong. Absolutely wrong. Both Christians and the Jews are kafirun. Not a question. Read your Quran, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. You mean to say our father Ibrahim alayhi salam, which they argue, was a kafir, na'udhu billah? And we're all from the same religion, they're his children? Na'udhu billah, no. Yes, we are from Millat Ibrahim alayhi salam, not a problem. But they have deviated, they became kafir. They made Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala angry. The only people who are accepted by Allah are the Muslims. There is no harm in talking to them, but putting them in the same footing as Islam, saying that there is no difference between Christian and Muslim, Christian and Jew, and Christian, Jew and Muslim, and therefore we're all servants of God, we're going to go to Jannah together. This is absolutely baloney. This is not what we subscribe to. So you need to understand this concept. But Ahlul Kitab has a special status in Islam, and they are not regarded as like the ordinary other kafirin, but these are special people. We are referring to Jews and Christians. Could the Jews and Christians of today be considered as Ahlul Kitab? This is a burning question in the minds of many Muslims. Many of the modern scholars argue that they are not, because they changed completely. These are not the people who lived during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who used to go to church, who used to go to synagogue and worship Allah in certain way, and they are completely different to the Christians and Jews of today, because Bible as well as the Torah has changed over the last 1400 years to so many different shapes and forms. Although this is true, the answer is not correct. According to Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, majority of the ulama, which we call Jumhur, the majority of the ulama across all madhahib, all the schools of thoughts in Islam, old and new, consider them to be Ahlul Kitab. They were mushrikeen before, still mushrik. They were kafir before, still kafir. The color of their kufr changed, still kafir. There is nothing. They used to believe in Trinity during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, true. They used to believe in what you call Uzair ibn Allah, the Musawiya, the Jews used to say. They used to kill their prophets, yeah, sure. They did in the past, Yahya alayhi salam, and others. They are still the same kafir, nothing has changed. But and yet, they are regarded as Ahlul Kitab. There are many, I can give you many examples from the companions, during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, companions, and the subsequent generations amongst the tabi'un, tabi'in, and all the other ai of old as well as the new. They concur 100% that the Ahlul Kitab of yesteryear as well as today are exactly the same people. Shamsul A'imma al-Sarakhsi, in his Mabsut, very famous book, Arabic, I can give you if you want to read the Arabic. He says he is considered to be one of the greatest Imams of Hanafi school of thought. Ibn Humam, again in Hanafi school of thought. Ibn Abidin, still the final say in the fiqh of the Ahnaf. They say exactly the same thing. The Christians of old and as well as new, Ahlul Kitab of old and new is exactly the same. There is nothing, no difference. Only some modern scholars think otherwise. But we follow the majority. It is also a rule in Islam. When there are so many differences of opinion, even within one school of thought, you follow the majority. Jumhur, we follow the majority. Shaykh Ahmed al-Sarabasi, he is a professor in Azhar University, head of a committee of ulama scholars who did also research and published a book, they called it Yas'alunaka, your questions. You use the Quranic term, Yas'alunaka anil anfal, Yas'alunaka anil ruh, Yas'alunaka, so many, Yas'alunaka, they ask of you. And therefore, especially this particular issue of Ahlul Kitab, they went and given dalils, proofs from Quran and Sunnah, as well as what the Sahaba, as well as the following subsequent generations, they have agreed upon. There is a consensus amongst the fuqaha that the Ahlul Kitab of old and the new are all the same. Not a problem. Mufti of Jordan, late Mufti of Jordan, Abdullah al-Qayqayli, Qadi Qudat Sheikh Muhammad Abu Bakr Mahmud al-Ghama of Nigeria, very famous scholar of the last century. He also says the same thing. They all concur. I can give you hundreds of names in this regard. So Ahlul Kitab of old and new is exactly the same. They were kafir before, they were mushrik before, still is the same. Nothing has changed. Only color of their shirk has changed a little bit more. They still say that Jesus, na'udhu billah, is Son of God. Correct? Did you know any change in Trinity? No. The Jews are still the same Jews. Same, what do you call, change Torah in their hands. Rabbis still change things as they go along. Yeah, no problem. We continue. So can we eat the meat slaughtered by Ahlul Kitab? Is the question. Are there any textual proofs from, in other words, from Quran and Sunnah written? Can you show us something that we can say, okay, this is from the Quran, this is from the Hadith of Rasulullah, especially Sahih? And also the practice of the Sahaba, the companions of Rasulullah and the subsequent generation, their children, and the practice of the Ummah of Muhammad since that time, up until recently. Can you tell us that how did, okay, we accept that the Ahlul, what do you call, the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah says these are Ahlul Kitab, not a problem, there is no change. How about their slaughtered animal? Okay, do we eat or not eat? There are actually two verses in the Quran. Two verses in the Quran that we must be very aware of. They are interlinked, intertwined to one another. And both are in Surah Al-Ma'idah. Let's look at the ayah of the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the ayah 3 of Surah Al-Ma'idah, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَيْتَةُ وَالدَّمُ وَلَحْمُ الْخِنْزِيرِ وَمَا أُهِلَّ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ بِهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbidden for you or to you which dies of itself and of blood and the flesh of khinzir, pig, swine, and that on which any other name than that of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been invoked. In other words, when you're slaughtering, when you mention any other name other than Bismillah, other than the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the first ayah says it is haram. In other words, whenever it is slaughtered, the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala must be mentioned. This is the ayah. The first ayah that was revealed. This ayah continues. We looked at this ayah before. Then did I miss that ayah? In the ayah 5, hold on. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. I must have deleted accidentally. In the second ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks in the, not the second ayah, the ayah 3, ayah 5. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, today, many things are made halal to you, including وَطَعَامُ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ حِلٌّ لَكُمْ. The ta'am, the food of Ahlul Kitab, the people of the book, is made halal to you, as well as your food made halal to them. You can open up verse 5 of the same surah. Skip 4, go to number 5. In that particular ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala very clearly says, وَطَعَامُ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ حِلٌّ لَكُمْ. And the food, ta'am, and a majority of Ibn Jarir and others, all of the mashayikh, all of the scholars, they say ta'am means slaughtered animal. The meat of Ahlul Kitab is made halal to you, and your food, your slaughtering is also made halal to them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this very clearly in the following ayah. In that ayah number 5. You can write it down. So for some reason I have Allahumma salli ala sayyidina. I have the first ayah, number 3, says to us, you should not eat an animal where the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not mentioned on it. And secondly, and you should not eat the meat of animals who dead on themselves, khinzir included, in the continuation of the ayah. And the ayah 5, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَطَعَامُ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ حِلٌّ لَكُمْ. Alright? So far. How about in the hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Is there any sahih hadith in this regard? Plenty. In Sahih Bukhari, I can give you all originals if you want to, but I have chosen the English version of this particular one, narrated by Anas ibn Malik radiallahu ta'ala an. A Jewish lady, Jewess, brought a poisoned, roasted, cooked sheep for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam after the conquest of Khaybar. Gave it to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a gift, a Jewish woman. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam ate from it. His companions also ate from it. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this hadith is a long hadith in a different version, where he called the Jewish woman and all the elders of the Jews, all the Jews. He says, Jibril Amin tells me that this is a poisoned. You have poisoned the sheep. You are lying. He says, what kind of sheep is this? This is a good sheep. But you're lying. This is a poison sheep. He says, yes, it's a poison sheep. But you just lied before. You're telling me it's poison sheep. He says, why did you do this for? We want to know whether you are, Ya Abul Qasim, we want to know whether you are a true prophet of Allah or not. Because if you're a true prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will tell you that it's poisoned and you won't eat it. If you're a liar, we got rid of you. They're thinking. But the issue that related to us, once this was known, they asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, shall we kill her, Ya Rasulullah? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said no. This poison continued all of his life. Even some of the ulama says Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam died because of this poisoning later on in his life. Some of the ulama. But the issue here that we want to look at is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he ate from it. What did he eat? A meat brought by whom? A Jew. Who's a Jew? Ahlul Kitab. In Sahih Bukhari. I even gave you the exact reference. The volume 3, Kitab of, the book of gifts, hadith number 786. Very simple to remember. 786. Also in Sahih Bukhari, there is a hadith narrated by Abdullah ibn Mughaffal radiallahu anhu. He says, during the siege of Khaybar, somebody from the fortress threw something near us, near me. I can see it was wrapped up. It was nicely meat pieces, huge meat pieces, and perhaps other foodstuffs there. I'm hungry, we're all hungry. And I wanted to take it. And I felt so embarrassed. It says, my adab prevented me because I saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also looking. Then in the version of Sahih Muslim, Imam Muslim, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he saw me looking at it, he also looked at me and smiled at me. The same hadith is repeated. In the addition, ziyada of Imam Muslim, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam looked at the Sahabi, Abdullah ibn Mughaffal, and he smiled, approving. And in the edition of the Ziyad of Abu Dawood at Tayalisi, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to me, you can have that, you can eat that. Says he took it and he ate it. What did he eat? Again, meat. From who? The Jews. The practice of eating the meat slaughtered by the Ahlul Kitab was also a practice of the Sahaba, Tabi'un, and the subsequent generations. Not a problem. Not a problem. However, freely, nicely, easily, no. I will talk about it later on. We're just looking at the fatwa level at the moment. Fatwa is completely different from taqwa. Taqwa. This particular fatwa, according to all of the ulama, that it is permissible for a Muslim to eat from what a Jew or a Christian has slaughtered, Ahl Kitab has slaughtered. And we are not required to investigate how it was slaughtered. Was it mechanical, or by hand, or otherwise? The only time in only 2 cases we are not allowed to eat, to touch the food of Ahlul Kitab. 2 cases. One is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the ulama agree on this one, if you openly see them mentioning any other name other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when they are slaughtering, in the name of the church, in the name of such and such saint, in the name of such and such, when you see other than the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with your own eyes, you heard it, and he was slaughtering next to you, and you saw, this meat becomes haram to you. Why? Because of the ayah number 3, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, any other name than that of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been invoked upon that particular slaughtering. This ayah prohibits, because you can see it. Haram. But if you did not see it, if you never saw it, you cannot assume that this Christian, this Jew, kafir, he never said anything, he maybe said something just to poison me. You can't do this. According to Sharia, according to al-fiqh, you cannot even investigate. If a Christian man, Christian neighbor, gave you something to eat of halal, of the meat, it is for you, is halal. You cannot ask a Christian, excuse me, George, yeah, where'd you get this meat from? How did you slaughter it? Did you say Bismillah on it? You can't ask any of these questions. Don't eat it. If you are concerned, if you doubt it, don't eat it. But take it, but it's better for your relationship with your neighbor. The second one, if instead of slaughtering the animal with a knife or something that bleeds, they were to strangle or beat the animal to death. They strangle, they choke the animal to death, or beat the animal to death, hitting on the head constantly until the animal is dead. Okay? That is without any bleeding. Without any bleeding. It is not halal, as per verse of 3 in Surah Al-Ma'idah again, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, forbidden to you is that which dies of itself, and the strangled animal and the beaten to death. In the same ayah. When they strangle the animal, I don't know how they do it, choke it with a wire or something until the animal is dead. Some humane method according to them, because they don't want to bleed to death, the animal to death. Or they beaten the animal to death for some reason. In that case, it is not permissible for us to eat because it is haram to do so. However, if they slaughtered through a machine, or if they bled the animal in one way or another, it is not appropriate for you to investigate whether they have done it this way or not. Last week I also mentioned to you, how do the ulama define where this particular place is Ahlul Kitab or not? We said last week, the ulama, the way they determine our fiqh, Islamic law determines whether a place is Ahlul Kitab or not. They look at the majority, dominant, prevalent number of places of worship belongs to what religion. If the place, this village, this township, this city has so many Buddhist temples, what do you say? This place is Buddhist. If you see a place full of synagogue, you say, I'm in Tel Aviv, or I'm somewhere in the Jewish place. If your place is full of churches, and you definitely say this is a Christian town. Whether they go to church or not, they only go once a year, man. These are no Christians. Only they're just a ceremony. Exactly the way it was before. Nothing more, nothing less. In every generation, there are some practicing Jews and practicing Christians. And in every generation, there are Fasik Christians and Fasik Jews. No problem. But still, they are Ahlul Kitab. Fiqh rule. Assumptions do not make an unknown condition haram. كل شيء إباحة مباح unless otherwise it is told haram. Any form of rumor, any form of hearsay, information spread or received from other people that one cannot adequately substantiate. A rumor, for example, cannot be used as evidence in Sharia and therefore cannot be acted upon. You need to have clear evidence. Man, they hear that in New Zealand, they don't kill the animals. What do? They strangle the animals. Do you have any proof of any kind? Yeah, I saw an internet site. What does it say internet site? By whom? Somebody who wants to kill the export industry of New Zealand? Somebody who is from Australia? Or is it somebody who is reliable? Who do you trust? You know the people who hate KFC, as they say KFC, you know their chickens? They are monsters. They're brought up in cages and their beaks are big and the eyes are huge and legs are skinny, and they make sure the chicken or the little chick becomes a chicken in less than 14 days. Huh? And they've got some pictures, some monsters. It says this is KFC chicken and done by the Vegetarian Society of Australia. The people who don't want you to eat meat, they come up with all these funny, controversial statements. So hearsay, a rumor, a furphy that people are constantly saying to each other does not make anything halal into haram or haram into halal. There must be clear evidence. When there is clear evidence, 100% evidence, that's a different story altogether. But assumptions do not make an unknown condition into haram. This is a Sharia law, usul al-fiqh. However, a muttaqi Muslim, a practicing Muslim, a Muslim who says, Ilahi anta maqsoodi wa ridaka matlubi. I want to live a life of pure Islam, according to Quran and Sunnah, according to, in a pure life. According to Imam Ibn Humam, in Hanafi school, great Imam, he says, except under difficult conditions, under darura, it is not befitting, it is not right, appropriate for a Muslim to eat the slaughtering of Ahlul Kitab. Brother, what are you talking about? You just told us we can eat, now you're telling us not to eat? I'm telling you what the Imam says. I say to you, I won't eat. But if I see a Muslim brother of mine eating, I just close my eye and not say anything. But if I saw that, I know that Muslim brother, good Muslim brother, who is really trying hard to be a good Muslim, I'll say to him, just go and buy from Medina Halal Meats. Go and buy from somebody who is halal. Why do you have to resort to such meat? Brother, it's cheap. That's not an excuse. Brother, it's, I wasn't special on calls. That's not an excuse. Halal meat. A Jew in Caulfield, they have kosher butchers. A Jew all the way from Sunshine travels once or twice a week all the way to Caulfield to buy his kosher meat because he believes that that's the only halal thing for him. You don't go to Muslim halal butcher here and you go to Coles next door and to buy some slaughtered meat because Sheikh Mahmoud says it's halal to eat so. No. If you're a muttaqi person, there is a thing called wara' in Islam. Wara' means avoiding suspicious things. Cautious. And you just want to make, no matter what fatwa the muftis give you. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, ask your heart. If your heart is not content with it, keep away from it. There is an option, there is alternative. Not a problem. When, however, you see any other Muslim eating the slaughtering of Ahlul Kitab, do not call them, oh kafir, look at this kafir, astaghfirullah al-azim. Kafir, kafir, you eating haram meat, haram, haram. Shh. By doing this, you are putting yourself in trouble. Because it is Ahlul Kitab according to any definition that you look at. But you yourself keep away from it. If you want to be a muttaqi person, God-fearing person, you keep from it, from any doubtful things. Now let's look at, what is it burning? Other miscellaneous burning issues. We want to have a look, inshallah. Yes.
If we are getting meat from any Christian, okay, how we can assure ourselves that it was slaughtered or it was strangled?
You're not allowed those questions.
We are not allowed. Second thing,
Even if you go to a Muslim's house, even if you go to a Muslim's house, you know that they're not very practicing Muslim. He offered you meat. Alhamdulillah, doesn't give you khanzir, no problem. Muslim, remember? Muhajjib and all. You are not allowed to ask. It's ghayr adabi. According to Islam, you cannot ask this question to the host. Is this meat halal? Where'd you get the meat from?
so that stranger you mentioned, is it if we are witnessing?
If you witnessed, if you know, keep away, haram.
And next slide you mentioned that we don't have to indulge in assumptions. We have to have concrete evidence.
Yes.
Okay, so for that concrete evidence, we will be investigating anyhow.
Yep.
Okay, so but previous slide again said that we don't have to investigate.
No, the general rule for the public is you don't have to investigate. If it's Ahl Kitab, Ahl Kitab. But you, inshallah, we will be looking at one particular issue here. Food items. Certain food items, certain additives within the foods. This is no different. Unless you're a chemical engineer, you know what goes into that stuff. You're a food scientist, you know exactly what goes into that stuff. According to Sharia, once you investigate and you found out, this becomes haram to you. Still halal to the general public. Okay? Because you did the investigation. For the general public, because easiness is preferred over difficulty all the time. This is Sharia rule. The fatwa is Ahlul Kitab you can eat from, and you do not investigate. This is fatwa for the general public. But for you, you are a muttaqi person, you want to find out, you can find out. And if you have the ability to find out, not a problem. Go and find out. Okay, we must make this very clear. Machine cut versus hand slaughter and electric shock. The name that I mentioned to you before, in the book Yas'alunaka, Ahmad al-Sharabasi, he says, it is without a doubt, whether it is from east or the west, all the food and the slaughtering of Ahlul Kitab is halal to us. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it halal to us in the Quran, وَطَعَامُ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ حِلٌّ لَكُمْ. All of the fuqaha, they say, if you are not present when they are slaughtering, and you did not see with your eyes what they said, you did not hear with your ears what they said, and it becomes halal for you to eat so, consume so. Even if they slaughtered I said, cut the animal with a machine, doesn't matter, or from the head in one go, chop the head. We're supposed to slaughter from the proper place, remember? They did not do it from the top, but they chopped it from the head. This is makruh according to the Ahnaf, but still edible. If they chopped it from the top, but it's still bleeding, not a good thing to do, but still halal, not a problem. And even amongst the Muslims in Muslim countries, they adopt this particular method of slaughtering with a machine. There are thousands of chickens are slaughtered by the machines every day. Thousands of animals are slaughtered by machines every day, specialized machines. Ulama of our days, majority give fatwa for this to be halal in a Muslim country. In a non-Muslim country, they say Ahl Kitab, general, what they call food of Ahl Kitab, it covers this issue. But if you know, and if you have an access to hand slaughtered, properly done, abattoir, and halal meat butcher, your option should be always given to them. The first preference. Electric shock we mentioned before, last week. There's some humane societies, animal rights activists, they come up with this idea, you should faint the animal before you slaughter so they don't feel pain, or you should shock the animal, just freeze them, faint them so they don't feel. There is nothing actually in the fatwa books of today. In the old, there is nothing at all. Whether you should faint the animal first, put an injection and the animal lies down, sleeps for a while and a slaughter. We never practiced before. This is a new thing amongst the people. But in Australia, this is practiced. Either they use mushroom gun for larger beasts, larger animals, or they use little electric shock, which shocks the sheep or the lamb for about 10-15 seconds. Then after that, during that time, the Muslim slaughterman or whatever the machine they use, slaughter the animal in that manner. Okay, they do this. How about, is one Bismillah enough for 5,000 animals? What do you mean? If you read this first time, he says, what do you mean, bro? It doesn't make sense. Yes, if you're the slaughterman and you're working in what do you call abattoir, and you have to slaughter 20,000 or 5,000 sheep or cow or chicken for that matter. As long as you say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, ulama say. Bismillah for the first one. And you can't keep up with Bismillah, the next Bismillah, 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 Bismillah. One Bismillah is enough, as long as you don't break this activity and start having a conversation with somebody. If you were to converse with somebody, you come back and say Bismillah, the same thing. With the machine as well as hand slaughter, one Bismillah is still enough. Even a Muslim forgets to say Bismillah, still edible. Still edible. Because he's a Muslim. To say Bismillah is not fard. To say Bismillah is not fard, you forgot, and you're of excitement, you slaughtered. Oh, this animal is rubbish, lash, they chuck it away. No. According to Sharia, this is not a problem. So one Bismillah is enough for 20,000 if need be. But you need to be supervising and not talking, not breaking conversation. Chicken slaughter and cleaning. Again, through machines, it is done in Australia, as well as handmade. And of course, there is a competition between hand slaughtered chickens versus the machine slaughtered chickens. If you go to what companies? Two companies, Baida and Seagulls, two big companies, Jewish companies. They became smart. They employed Muslim employees as slaughter, so they supplied to everybody as halal. The chickens that you get from the markets is all slaughtered by the Muslims, because these are two monopolists, the companies who hold the monopoly of chickens, two Jewish companies. The slaughterman, including for the local consumption, is done by the Muslims. You go to Nando's, all the chickens are halal from Baida. You go to Afik, they will give you Baida is halal. Halal, but they never display. And Nando's will not say we are halal. But the chicken is actually, all chicken provided, give supply to Nando's is from Baida, halal. You go anywhere, it's halal because it is done by the Muslim slaughterman. Did you know this? No. I'm not giving you any license to go and eat from anywhere you want. I'm just giving you what the facts are. You can investigate it yourself. The way they clean the chicken is where the problem starts. If, according to Ahnaf, if the animal chicken is put into boiling hot water after it's being slaughtered, immediately, so that it relaxes the body and the feathers come out easily, plucking becomes easily, that chicken becomes najis and cannot be eaten. Because all that heat cooks the skin and cooks everything else in it, because it's so, so hot. But if it's not hot enough to burn your fingers and what have you, it doesn't do anything to the chicken in terms of cooking it instantly, then it is permissible to do so. So majority of the Australian industry in terms of chicken, poultry, is regulated. You can find out these, under what conditions they do and how they do it. You can find out those things if you're really worried about it. Some people, even some method, in order to cleanse the chicken so easily, they put from the head side pressurized water. Pressurized water, it goes through the system and comes out the back. Quick cleaning. Even the ulama, they say, in that regard, you have to take the dubur, the end of the chicken out. That is najis and that's haram. And the rest should be, because it's cleansing, quick cleansing process, it is clean to do so. Everything is covered. There is not a single thing not covered in Islam. Fish meat. Actually, ulama do not regard fish meat as meat. They say fish is fish. Meat when we say red meat. And cooking without cleaning. What do you mean? There are some dish in cultures, they without cleaning, gutting the fish, taking the insides out, they put it in some wrapper, banana leaves or other, or some aluminum foil and put it in the what do you call, some coal or some oven and cook it that way. The ulama say, again according to Ahnaf, if the size of the fish is 1.5 times the length of your middle finger, 1.5 times, we're talking about a little bit bigger than sardine size. In that, if that's the case, he says it is permissible to cook the fish and eat the fish without cleaning, as it is. But if it's bigger size, then you need to open up and clean it so. Same thing with prawns. Prawns could be little prawns, and there are some big, huge ones. You need to divine and take the poisonous bits out. 3 minutes, 2 minutes. Inshallah, I'm going there. Margarines and issues of additives in foodstuffs. Margarines are byproducts of vegetables usually. It was when it first came out, manufactured, it was a competition by the Americans to the farmers, the corn growers, the vegetable growers. They want to compete. They invented this stuff called margarines. Margarine was black in color. Nobody bought it. They couldn't market it. They changed the color to pink. Nobody bought it. They changed the color to something else. Nobody bought it. And because people kept on buying butter, which is a natural product. And eventually they found something similar color, so they say easy spread like butter. They use the word butter in it every now and then, but it has so many stuff in it that some doctors even say if you knew what it goes into the margarines, the amount of free radicals in it, you will never touch the stuff. You need to make sure it does not contain any animal byproducts. Make sure that there is no gelatin in it. Make sure there is no lard in it. Lard is the pig fat. Make sure that there is no animal fat or emulsifiers in it. If you didn't know and ate it, that's a different story. But if knowingly if you eat this, you are in trouble. As I told before, it is not a requirement in Islam for every single Muslim to become a chemical engineer, to find out what these emulsifier 7527365 is, what the color 7251356 is, or we've got no idea unless you're the computer genius. You have an iPhone in your hand, look at the a number of additives, and you can find out on the internet immediately. Not a problem. But for my grandmother doesn't have to know because she can't even speak English. So as long as she knows that she asked him, is this animal in it, animal byproduct in it? Or is there any, gelatin in this thing? No? Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay? Coloring, certain colorings in certain products, they say comes from some dead insects to give coloring. You need to know those things. Organic, wholesome food is the best way to go. Cheese and rennet and pepsin. What am I talking about? Our time is up. Maybe we can talk about this next week. It's Salatul Isha now. People want to stop? Is it time? One more minute, I can talk about this. One more minute. Yeah, okay. Rennet is an enzyme. Pepsin is an enzyme that lives in the spleen of the animals. It is not part of the animal, it's a parasite. And either from dead animal or living animal, they extract this, which is not part of the animal, according to ulama. If you understand anything about this particular science, it is not the part of the animal, it is not animal. Except in the case that it is pork, it is pig, swine, because it's li'aynihi, najis and haram, you cannot extract this particular rennet or pepsin in order to use it as a culture in making cheese, paneer. Muslims made such a big issue out of this, and they invented vegetable-based rennet, whatever that means. Rennet is a rennet. And all of our ulama, including Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I can give you, he ate cheese. Companions ate cheese. The subsequent generations ate cheese. The Ottomans, Seljuks, who held the Khulafa, who were the Khalifas for generations, Shaykh al-Islam gave fatwa to eat cheese that was sent from Greece, from the Rum, the Arab Rum that we're talking about, Europe. They ate the cheese. Unless you're 100% sure that the rennet and the pepsin comes from lard, pig from itself, then it is haram. The rest is, according to the ulama, it is halal to do so. It is halal to do so. So when you look at cheese, you don't have to spend 3 hours on the ingredients list. Does it have a rennet? Is it animal rennet or not animal? Some Muslim companies are so smart, mashallah. They all of a sudden they became muftis and they give fatwa as well as halal certificates to make money from the companies. They say, is it vegetable rennet or animal rennet? And they somehow concocted some evidence of some kind where they say cheese is haram unless it is vegetable rennet. This is not so. This is against the practice of our ulama, our scholars, our ai all of the people until the time of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. But if you want to eat cheese rennet, the rennet made out of vegetables, ahlan wa sahlan, nobody can stop you. Okay? Jazakumullahu khair jaza. Our time is up. We will do our salat, and after that inshallah there's food at the downstairs for brothers and upstairs for sisters.